The crimson dust swirled, choking the air and clinging to Aiden's sweat-soaked skin. The acrid tang of burning bioplastic stung his nostrils, a grim reminder of their vulnerability. He clutched the mangled frame of his friend, Lena, a bioengineer like himself, her life extinguished in the brutal efficiency of the Cathari raid. Lena's dream, their shared dream, of coaxing life back into Tero's poisoned soil, now lay shattered alongside her. He slammed his fist into the crimson sand, a guttural cry tearing from his throat. They had been so close to completing the new hydroponic system, a system that could have fed the entire bunker for months. Now, it was just another casualty in a war that felt increasingly unwinnable. Through the swirling dust devils, Aiden noticed a glint of something unnatural amidst the wreckage of the outpost. A shard of crystalline material, unlike anything he'd seen before. He picked it up, turning it over in his hand. It pulsed with a faint inner light, radiating a strange, unfamiliar warmth. Could it be a part of the Cathari weaponry? He tucked it carefully into his pouch, a flicker of grim resolve igniting within him. He would understand this, he would understand how these crystalline beings could wield such devastating power. He owed it to Lena, to all those they had lost. Far from the carnage, perched atop a jagged silicon spire, Vila watched the raid unfold. Her crystalline body shimmered with a kaleidoscope of troubled hues, reflecting the turbulent emotions within. The ruthless efficiency of her brethren, the Cathari, filled her with a profound unease. The Council's decree to eradicate the human infestation felt increasingly unjustified. These fragile organic beings, clinging to life in their subterranean bunkers, posed no real threat. Yet, the Council, blinded by ancient dogma and fear of the unknown, saw them as a contagion. Vila's gaze fixed on a lone human figure amidst the destruction. He stood defiant amidst the dust and debris, his grief palpable even from this distance. He clutched something small in his hand, his posture radiating a quiet intensity. There was something different about him, a strength, a resilience that resonated with a strange harmony within her own crystalline core. Back in the relative safety of the bunker, Aiden meticulously cleaned the Cathari shard. Under the harsh glow of the recycled lamps, its intricate structure revealed itself. He ran diagnostics, his fingers dancing across the worn keypad of his salvaged analyzer. The results were baffling. The shard emitted a low-frequency energy signature, unlike anything he'd encountered in Cathari technology before. It seemed to resonate with the planet itself, humming with the same dormant energy he detected in Tero's poisoned soil. His investigation led him to a forgotten section of the bunker, a sealed archive containing remnants of the initial colonization effort. Within the dusty data logs, he found fragmented references to a Cathari terraforming technology, a technology the Council had vehemently denied possessing. Could this shard be a piece of that puzzle? A way to heal Teros, to make it habitable again? As he delved deeper into the archive, a tremor shook the bunker, sending dust raining from the low ceiling. He looked up, his heart pounding. The tremors had become more frequent lately, a sign of the planet's growing instability. He had to find answers, and he had to find them fast. He didn't notice the faint shimmer in the corner of the archive until a voice, crystalline and clear, echoed through the chamber. "You seek knowledge that is forbidden." Aiden spun around, his hand instinctively reaching for the laser pistol holstered at his hip. Standing before him was a figure unlike any he had ever seen. A being of living crystal, radiating an ethereal luminescence. Her form shifted and shimmered, her color swirling like a nebula. It was Vila, the Cathari he had observed from afar during the raid. He recognized the sorrow in the depths of her multifaceted eyes. He could sense her conflicted emotions radiating from her very form. In that moment, he felt an unexpected surge of compassion and curiosity in response to her palpable anxiety. Fear turned to awe, and awe to something akin to recognition. He lowered his weapon. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I am Vila," she replied, her voice tinged with a mixture of apprehension and something he couldn't quite place. "And I believe we share a common purpose." The faint hum of the Cathari shard resonated in the silence of the archive, a counterpoint to the erratic thump of Aiden's heart. Vila's crystalline form pulsed with a kaleidoscope of colors, reflecting the tension that crackled between them. He saw fear in the shifting hues, but also an unnerving curiosity that mirrored his own. He couldn't shake the image of her watching the raid, the sorrow he had sensed in her. This, Aiden gestured to the shard, it could change everything. Veela's facets shimmered, a ripple of apprehension crossing her form. The Council forbids knowledge of this technology, she whispered, her voice like the chime of crystalline bells. They fear its power, the change it represents. He swallowed, his throat dry. Change is what we need. Turos is dying. My people are dying. The memory of Lena's lifeless eyes flashed before him, fueling his resolve. He held out the shard. Tell me what you know. Hesitation warred with something else in Veela's expressive colors, a flicker of hope, perhaps. She drifted closer, her crystalline form refracting the dim light of the archive. It was then that Aiden realized the true extent of her courage. To even be here, speaking to him, was an act of defiance. This technology, it was designed to heal, she said, her voice barely audible. To restore balance. But the Council believes such power is too dangerous, too unpredictable. Aiden's fingers brushed against hers as he offered the shard. The contact sent a jolt through him, a strange mix of warmth and static. He pulled back slightly, surprised. Veela, however, didn't flinch. She took the shard, her crystalline fingers caressing its surface. The faint luminescence within intensified, casting an ethereal glow on her face. Over the next few weeks, they met in secret, the abandoned archive their sanctuary. Aiden explained the intricacies of human bioengineering, his passion for restoring Turos burning in his words. Veela revealed the rigid hierarchy of the Cathari, their fear of change, the Council's iron grip on their society. He learned of her growing isolation, her disillusionment with the Council's methods. She learned of his lost family on Earth, the burden of responsibility he carried for the surviving colonists. He found himself drawn to her unique perspective, the way she saw the world through the prism of her crystalline being. She, in turn, seemed captivated by his resilience, his unwavering belief in a better future. Their shared purpose became a bridge between their species, a fragile thread of hope in a world consumed by conflict. One day, Veela arrived at their meeting place, her colors flashing with alarm. The Council knows, she whispered, her voice trembling. They know about us, about the technology. They're coming for me. Aiden felt a surge of protectiveness, a fierce determination to keep her safe. We have to hide the shard, he said, his mind racing. Somewhere they'll never find it. There is a place, Veela said, her voice low. A hidden chamber beneath the silicon spire. But it is guarded, heavily guarded. He looked at her, his heart pounding. It was a suicide mission. But he couldn't leave her to face the Council alone. He knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that he couldn't bear to lose her. He placed his hand over hers, feeling the smooth, cool surface of her crystalline skin beneath his fingertips. Then we go together. Their escape was a blur of close calls and desperate maneuvers, their combined skills complementing each other in a way that surprised even them. Aiden's knowledge of the bunker's hidden passages and Veela's ability to manipulate the silicon structures allowed them to evade the Council's forces, slipping through their fingers like shadows. In the hidden chamber beneath the silicon spire, they hid the shard, its faint hum echoing in the vast space. As they turned to leave, Veela hesitated, her colors shifting with uncertainty. Aiden, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Thank you. For believing in me, in us. He reached out, his fingers gently tracing the contours of her crystalline face. We'll find a way, he said, his voice filled with a conviction he barely felt. A way to make this right. He saw a flicker of fear in her eyes, but also a glimmer of something else, something that looked a lot like hope. And in that shared moment of vulnerability, amidst the looming threat of the Council, their connection deepened, forging a bond that transcended the chasm between their species. The faint hum of the hidden shard resonated between them, a silent promise of a future they weren't sure they'd live to see. The archive's silence amplified the tremor in Aiden's hands as he traced the intricate patterns etched into the Cathari shard. Each meeting with Veela chipped away at the wall of grief he'd built around himself since Lena's death, replacing it with a fragile hope he hadn't dared to feel in years. He glanced at Vila, her crystalline form reflecting the dim light, the shifting colors a mirror of her own complex emotions. He was falling for her, he realized, falling for this being from a world he barely understood. And that terrified him. The Council's fear is rooted in stagnation, Vila said, her voice a melodic chime that resonated strangely within the metal walls of the archive. They cling to the past, afraid of the unknown. Afraid of growth. Aidan nodded, understanding her words more than she knew. He, too, had clung to the past, to the memory of Earth, to the guilt of surviving when his family hadn't. We adapt, he said softly, his fingers brushing against the smooth, cool surface of her crystalline hand. He pulled back instantly, fear flashing through him. Would his touch harm her? But Vila didn't flinch. Instead, a soft, pulsing light emanated from her, bathing the archive in a warm glow. We are more alike than you think, Aidan. He found himself captivated by her alien beauty, by the way her crystalline structure seemed to reflect his own turbulent emotions. He'd learned that touch, for the Kathari, was a form of communication, a way of sharing emotions and thoughts. It was intimate, vulnerable, and utterly unlike anything he'd ever experienced. He yearned to reach out again, but held back, a flicker of doubt still lingering. Over the next few days, their clandestine meetings became more frequent, their conversations more personal. He told her about his parents, about the vibrant green fields of Earth, about the dreams he'd carried with him to Turos. She listened intently, absorbing his words, her colors shifting with a kaleidoscope of understanding and sorrow. He saw in her a reflection of his own longing, his own deep-seated fear of failure. He, in turn, learned about her aspirations, about her desire to prove that her people weren't the cold, calculating beings the Council portrayed them to be. She spoke of a Kathari prophecy, a whispered legend of a time when silicon and carbon would unite, creating a new form of life, a new era of understanding. One evening, Vila arrived at the archive, her form shimmering with a frantic energy. The Council is planning an attack on the human settlements, she said, her voice strained. They believe you are developing a weapon using the shard. Aidan's heart sank. He had hoped to avoid further bloodshed, to find a peaceful solution. But the Council's fear, their rigid adherence to ancient dogma, was blinding them to the truth. I have to warn them, he said, turning towards the bunker's communication center. Vila's hand, cool and smooth, stopped him. No. They won't listen. They will see it as a provocation. I will go. Aidan stared at her, incredulous. You can't. It's too dangerous. I must, she said, her multifaceted eyes meeting his. I must prove to them, to both our peoples, that there is another way. He saw the unwavering resolve in her gaze, the same resilience that had drawn him to her in the first place. He knew he couldn't stop her. He placed his hand over hers, a silent acknowledgement of her courage. Be careful, Vila. Please. Her departure left a gaping hole in the silence of the archive. He paced restlessly, every tremor of the bunker a hammer blow against his fraying nerves. Hours later, she returned, her colors dimmed, her form flickering with exhaustion. They almost didn't believe me, she whispered, leaning against him, her cool skin a stark contrast to his warmth. But I convinced them. They've agreed to a meeting. A wave of relief washed over him, followed by a surge of admiration. She had risked everything, for him, for his people, for a future they weren't even sure existed. He wrapped his arms around her, gently, tentatively, marveling at the delicate strength of her crystalline form. In that embrace, amidst the harsh reality of their scarred world, they found a moment of fragile peace, a shared hope that maybe, just maybe, they could bridge the chasm between their species, together. But as the tremors of Turos intensified, shaking the very foundation of their sanctuary, Aidan couldn't shake the feeling that the true test of their bond was yet to come. The insistent tremor of the bunker floor vibrated through Aidan, a constant reminder of Turos' fragility. Vila's warning echoed in his mind, the Kathari Council, suspicious of their collaboration, had ordered her capture. His own people, the rebels, wouldn't understand his alliance with a Cathari, let alone his growing feelings for her. He was trapped between two worlds, bound to a woman who was both his salvation and his potential downfall. "We can't stay here," he said, his voice tight. The archive, their sanctuary, had become a cage. Veela's crystalline form shimmered with a kaleidoscope of anxiety. "Where do we go?" "The surface," Aiden said, the thought sending a shiver down his spine. The toxic air, the mutated predators, it was a death sentence for any unprotected human. But it was their only option. He trusted Veela, trusted her ability to protect them, even though a part of him screamed at the irrationality of it all. Emerging from the bunker into the crimson twilight of Turos was like stepping into a nightmare. The air burned in his lungs, the wind whipping at his protective suit, the twisted silhouettes of mutated flora clawing at the poisoned sky. He felt a wave of nausea, a primal fear gripping him. He'd never ventured this far onto the surface before. Veela moved with an ethereal grace, her crystalline body adapting to the harsh environment, her colors shifting to blend with the desolate landscape. She reached out, her cool hand brushing against his gloved one. A surge of warmth spread through him, chasing away the fear, a silent reassurance in the desolate landscape. "We need to reach the crucible," she said, her voice calm amidst the howling wind. "A Cathari structure. It holds a key to activating the terraforming technology." The crucible was a jagged spire of black silicon, rising like a skeletal finger from the crimson wasteland. As they approached, Aiden noticed the Cathari patrols, their crystalline forms shimmering like predatory insects. Veela pulled him into the shadow of a towering rock formation, her hand gripping his tightly. "We'll have to create a diversion," she whispered, her facets flashing with a dangerous light. "I'll draw their attention. You slip through while they're distracted." Fear clawed at Aiden's throat. "No. It's too dangerous. They'll shatter you." Her multifaceted eyes met his, a strange mix of determination and sorrow in their depths. "This is my fight too, Aiden," she whispered. "I have to prove, to myself, that I'm not like them." Before he could protest, she was gone, her form shimmering across the barren landscape, drawing the Cathari patrols away with a dazzling display of light and energy. He watched, his heart pounding, as she led them on a wild chase, her movements fluid and graceful, a dancer in a macabre ballet. He knew she was buying him time, risking her life for a future she might not live to see. And in that moment, the weight of his feelings for her crashed down on him, a crushing wave of fear and admiration. He slipped past the distracted patrols, his heart hammering against his ribs, guilt and gratitude warring within him. He reached the crucible, the entrance a gaping maw of darkness. He took a deep breath, the recycled air of his suit a stark reminder of his fragile humanity. He stepped inside. The interior of the crucible pulsed with a strange energy, the air thick with the smell of ozone. In the center of the chamber, a massive crystalline structure hummed with power, radiating a soft, ethereal light. It was the heart of the terraforming technology, Veela had explained, the key to healing Turos. He worked quickly, his fingers flying across the control panel, guided by Veela's instructions. He activated a small portion of the technology, sending a pulse of energy through the crucible. Outside, the crimson sky flickered, a brief flash of green illuminating the desolate landscape. It was a small change, but a significant one. Proof that the technology worked, that Turos could be healed. He knew it wouldn't be enough to convince the council, but it was a start. A symbol of hope for his people, and a testament to Veela's courage. He had to get back to her, make sure she was safe. As he emerged from the crucible, he saw her, surrounded by Cathari warriors, her crystalline form flickering weakly. He didn't hesitate. He ran towards her, laser pistol drawn, ready to face whatever came next. He'd chosen. He'd chosen Veela, chosen hope, chosen a future he couldn't even imagine, a future where human and Cathari might stand together, side by side, under a healed sky. The crucible pulsed with the energy of a dying star, a silent testament to the Cathari's power. Veela lay on the crystalline floor, her light dimmed, her color swirling in chaotic patterns. The council's guards had been merciless, their crystalline blades swift and precise. Aiden knelt beside her, his gloved hand hovering over her shattered form, fear constricting his throat. He'd arrived too late. "Vila," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. He removed his glove, a desperate act of defiance against the protocols, against the very nature of their different beings. He reached out, his bare hand trembling as it touched the cool, fractured surface of her crystalline body. A jolt of energy surged through him, a wave of sorrow and something else. A flicker of warmth. Her light intensified, her color swirling into a kaleidoscope of relief and pain. "Aiden," she whispered, her voice weak but clear. You shouldn't touch." "I know," he said, his voice thick with tears. He didn't care about the protocols, about the potential dangers. He couldn't lose her. Not now. Not after everything they'd been through. He channeled his own bioenergy, a desperate gamble, hoping he could somehow stabilize her, heal her. A soft, pulsing light emanated from his hand, flowing into her shattered form. Her color stabilized, the chaotic pattern shifting into a gentle, rhythmic pulse. It was working. He was healing her. He continued to channel his energy, feeling a strange connection to her, a sense of shared vulnerability and strength. "The Council, they attacked the bunker," she whispered, her voice gaining strength. "A miscalculation, they thought, the humans, were preparing for war." Aiden's heart sank. He'd known the Council's fear was a dangerous weapon, a self-fulfilling prophecy. He had to stop them. He had to stop this war before it even began. "I'll go," he said, his voice firm despite the tremor of fear that ran through him. "I'll explain. I'll make them understand." Vila's light dimmed again, a flicker of apprehension crossing her form. "No. They won't listen. They'll see you as a threat." He looked at her, his heart aching. He couldn't leave her again, not in this state. But he couldn't let his people be slaughtered because of the Council's paranoia. He had to try. "I have to," he said, his voice soft but resolute. "For you. For us. For Turos." He kissed her, a gentle touch of his lips against her crystalline cheek, a silent promise of return. Then, he turned and ran, back towards the ravaged surface, back towards the bunker, back towards the looming threat of the Cathari Council. He was a bioengineer, not a warrior. But he would fight. He would fight for Vila, for his people, for the fragile hope of a future together. He reached the bunker just as the Cathari assault began. Chaos reigned. Laser fire crisscrossed the crimson sky, the air thick with the smell of burning bioplastics. He pushed his way through the panicked crowd, his mind racing. He had to reach the communication center, had to contact the Council, had to stop this madness. He found the Council's lead negotiator, a towering Cathari whose crystalline form radiated an icy disdain. "You betrayed us," the negotiator hissed, his voice like grinding silicon. "No," Aiden pleaded, his voice hoarse. "It was a misunderstanding. We want peace. Vila wants peace." The negotiator's facets hardened. "Vila is a traitor. She will be shattered." Aiden's blood ran cold. He had a choice. He could continue to plead for peace, knowing it would likely fall on deaf ears. Or he could fight, knowing he would be branded a traitor by his own people. He thought of Vila, of her courage, of her unwavering belief in him, in them. He thought of the fragile hope they had shared, the dream of a healed Turos. He made his choice. He raised his laser pistol, a desperate act of defiance. "Then you'll have to go through me." The battle was short, brutal, and chaotic. Aiden fought with a ferocity he didn't know he possessed, fueled by his love for Vila, his loyalty to his people, his unwavering belief in a future where human and Cathari could coexist. He was outnumbered, outgunned, but he refused to yield. He fought until he collapsed, his body battered, his spirit unbroken. He closed his eyes, waiting for the final blow. It never came. He opened his eyes to see Vila standing before him, her crystalline form radiating a powerful light, her color swirling with a mixture of fury and determination. The Cathari warriors surrounding him had lowered their weapons, their facets flickering with uncertainty. "Enough," she commanded, her voice resonating with authority. "This war ends now." The negotiator glared at her, his facets flashing with anger. "You dare defy the council?" "The council is wrong," Vila said, her voice unwavering. "They are blinded by fear. They cannot see the truth." She turned to Aidan, her light softening, her color swirling with a tenderness that made his heart ache. "Aidan has shown me another way. A way of peace. A way of hope." The negotiator hesitated, his crystalline form shimmering with indecision. He looked at Aidan, then back at Vila. He saw the unwavering resolve in their eyes, the undeniable bond that connected them, a bond that transcended the chasm between their species. He saw the future they envisioned, a future where their differences were not a source of conflict, but a source of strength. He lowered his weapon. The war was over. But the battle for acceptance had just begun. Aidan and Vila, their hands clasped together, stood amidst the wreckage of their scarred world, their love a beacon of hope in a galaxy still consumed by shadows. They were outcasts, condemned by both their peoples, their union a symbol of defiance and a testament to the enduring power of love. Their future was uncertain, their path fraught with peril. But they had each other. And in that shared moment of vulnerability and strength, they found the courage to face whatever came next, together.